and welcome to Animation Triad. As usual, I'm your host, Stu, and with me today is...
Lish, of course.
Indeed.
And Aaron could not be with us because he had to work, but he is here with us in spirit.
And we will have his opinions in a little bit. We'll feature him eventually in this review.
Special recording. Woohoo! With his...
So, today we are here at the amazing Redford Theatre, and we're going to show you a quick little glance around it a little bit. Take a look. Tell me what you guys think. Oh, just look at this place. It is fantastic. So we're here to celebrate a movie known as The Iron Giant, which the Redford is being so awesome as to do a special showing of today at 2 o'clock. If you can't make it, just go eventually. They have all these amazing films. We're going to have a link below to their website and everything. Just check them out. They're an amazing theater, and they need your support.
If you are in the Michigan/Metro Detroit area, then you are definitely going to want to stop by the Redford Theater, watch this classic movie, Iron Giant, and of course, check out this beautiful place, because it is
amazing.
Ridiculous.
No, I'm dead serious. I had my engagement photos taken at this theater, and it is fantastic. I can attest to that. Starting with the film. This was released in 1999, tail end of the 90s and all that, and it was released by Warner Brothers. It was directed by Brad Bird. Oh, he's famous for a couple of films. This was his first feature film, but he's most famous for The Incredibles.
Yes.
One of my all-time favorite Pixar films.
I believe he's also responsible for Finding Nemo.
No, Ratatouille.
Ratatouille? I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. And he also did Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. And he also worked on Tomorrowland, which didn't go over so well. And then he's also working on the upcoming Incredibles 2. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out, because as I said, I love the original. But what is the Iron Giant? This is a story about 9-year-old Hogarth Hughes, who discovers a giant metal robot which crash lands on Earth in the 1950s. 1957, I believe, to be precise, in a little town called Rockwell, Maine.
Also very aesthetic.
Very much so. And this film, just looking at it, is very warm and inviting. It feels like you're looking at almost a children's picture book of sorts.
I think it's the rosy cheeks.
That too, yeah.
Because, like, his mom and also, surprisingly, the antagonist both have rosy cheeks, and you don't see a lot of that in cartoons, even in Disney films. Like, they are very... I think it's warm and inviting, partially because of that, partially because of the art and the way that they did the faces.
Now, this is not an original work. It's loosely based off of / inspired by a book by the name, well, novel really, called The Iron Man, a children's story in 5 nights by Ted Hughes. He was a British poet laureate. And interestingly enough, this film was going to be originally a musical. Yeah, originally they wanted it to be a musical because there's another musical adaptation of this by Peter Townshend of The Who. He actually adapted it into a stage musical called The Iron Man, the Musical.
That explains the album cover.
Yes, and in all honesty, it's also closer to the book. Now, the book is quite different. There's only the vaguest similarities between the two, featuring a giant robot and a character called Hogarth.
When they reboot this, I want the musical version.
I don't know, I think it works really well on its own.
Musicals for everything.
But yes, we'll talk about the differences once we summarize the plot a bit more. So we start out with the landing of the Iron Giant. He crash lands on Earth into the ocean by Maine, and he's spotted by a fisherman who wrecks his ship into it. And then we're introduced to Hogarth, who is a 9-year-old boy with his single mom. The father's no longer with them. It's never explained, but it is hinted at that he's apparently dead, and he was a fighter pilot. Now, this is set in 1957, so it's after World War II, but during the communist scare. This is right after Sputnik has been launched, and there's a big to-do about that. You actually open with a scene of Sputnik.
They talk about Sputnik
A lot.
actually a lot in the film, particularly when they introduce the antagonist, Kent Mansley.
And Kent Mansley, oh, he is fantastic in this film. He's such a hateable character. He really is. But he was actually portrayed by Christopher McDonald. Oh, this guy, he plays bad characters so well. He plays so many dislikable characters.
This guy is, like, even if you don't know who he is at a glance, like, once you see him, you'll know who he is. So we're going to make sure that we actually put his picture up on the screen somewhere here in just a few minutes, so that way you know what he looks like. So yeah.
That's what he looks like.
That's what he looks like. And I mean, isn't that crazy? You know, you've seen him in a million things, and there he is, being this iconic voice for a great antagonist.
Oh, I mean, there's a solid performance from everyone in this. Now, going down the cast. Jennifer Aniston as Hogarth's mom. And I gotta say, she did a really good job, and I wouldn't really imagine, I didn't think that Jennifer Aniston has played a mother character very well, but she played it spot on. And this was shortly after, or when did Friends wrap up?
I think this was happening still during Friends, actually. But I will say, I think it's probably just because she gets typecast as the ditzy, lovable blonde in movies, that's why we can't see her in a motherly role. But truthfully, you're right, she did nail it.
Oh, yeah.
And that just goes to show you the complexity of her voice.
Indeed. And she actually, as I said, everyone gives a very solid performance. Another character we should talk about from, well, the beginning of the film is Dean, the beatnik / junkyard artist, yes. Played by Harry Connick Jr.
Yes.
Solid performance right here. He is so fun to watch in this film. He really is. Overall, just great energy and performance. And, of course, there is Hogarth himself, who, well, at the time, this actor hadn't done much, let's say, but now he's most famous for being in this film and for being in American Pie.
Those are two very different genres.
Yes, he's actually a retired actor now. He doesn't act anymore.
Oh.
And of course, we have the titular Iron Giant. Vin Diesel from Pitch Black is the voice of the Iron Giant. Most people nowadays know him mostly as Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy, and of course, as that character in Fast and the Furious. I have never seen any of those. But he's a very interesting guy. I was actually watching the special features of this, and he's the host of it. And when you have him talking to kids and stuff, it is so bad because he's trying to be entertaining and all, and it just comes across as forced, and it's hilarious.
Some people aren't kid people.
No, they're not.
And that's okay. Like,
yeah.
Own it. Own it.
But he is good, I will say this. And
we did not bring our tangent jar.
No, we did not bring the tangent jar because this is a special and it would be too heavy to lug around.
So instead, we're going on all the tangents and you just have to deal.
Hang on for the ride, folks. We're trying. So, we have the Iron Giant crashing in the ocean, and then later in the night, we have Hogarth, who's home alone, watching scary movies and eating junk food, you know, what other kids will do when they're home alone. And all of a sudden, the TV goes out because the antenna has been eaten.
The Iron Giant himself is also looking for junk food in the form of anything and everything metal. So he ends up eating the tower, basically, parts of the tower, because they did get the power restored. But let's actually talk about that. How when Hogarth discovers the Iron Giant, they have a language barrier that they have to overcome. And I thought that was really interesting, but I have to say, like, why is this little kid getting so frustrated that an alien / robot doesn't understand everything he's saying? Like,
Very
of course
true.
the guy's not gonna understand. Not everybody speaks the same language.
Oh, he's a kid, so, you know, they think that way.
And he's like, no, listen to me. I'm like, kid, you need to chill.
Yeah, pretty much. But he's also teaching him and stuff, so it's understandable that it's like he's grasping on things quickly, so he thinks he'd understand stay or something. But yeah.
And then it's so cute when at the end, the Iron Giant actually tells him, no, stay.
Yes, that was actually very well done.
Which I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here and say that was simultaneously one of my favorite, but also one of my most confusing points in the story. Like, I get it, noble sacrifice and everything, but there's a little part of me that just, when, spoiler alert, when the Iron Giant goes off to save the city, he's been persecuted by these people of the city. Not by all of them. There were plenty that were sweet and understanding.
It was just the military.
And understood. Right, but the military is no small potato.
No.
Like, military's big. That's how they protect people. So he's persecuted by the military, by the CIA and everything, and still chooses to sacrifice himself for these people. It's brilliant and it's noble sacrifice, but at the same time, like, why? Why did you do it?
To save the people he cared about.
Yeah, I have to say, he did it specifically for Hogarth. Not even anybody else, just for Hogarth, I would say.
I don't know, I think as you see him saving people in general, he just... Well, let's jump to another scene, okay? So earlier, midway through the film, you have a scene where he discovers a deer. And then the deer gets shot by hunters, and I'm pretty sure that's set up for Bambi. But I digress. So, then Hogarth has to explain to the Iron Giant death, basically. And he has no concept of this because he's metal and not exactly living, but also kind of alive at the same time.
Right, and I mean, he can just beep his organs back together.
He can rebuild himself. So, yeah, that's actually a very touching scene. Actually, we're going to cut to a clip of that now, and we'll come back to that.
It's dead.
Dead?
Don't do that!
Why?
It's dead, understand? They shot it with that gun.
Okay, and we're back. So, that right there, I thought was a very important scene for the whole film because it sets up a lot. It sets up his dislike of guns, his understanding of death, basically.
It also, unfortunately, more than his distaste for guns, more than him learning about an important part of life on Earth, it also shows his dark side. Because it's not just as simple as him not liking guns. He does have a kill switch. He does have, like,
as that's revealed
switch.
later.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great insight into not only taking this robot and making it lovable, but also giving it a real depth of personality that you wouldn't really be prone to assign otherwise. Like, when people are writing stories about AI, I feel like that would be more likely to write a character with flaws. But the Iron Giant is not AI. The Iron Giant appears to be, for all intents and purposes, another life form.
Very much so.
So I really like that they rounded out his character in that way.
And since we've been talking about our thoughts on it so far, I think it's time that we switch over to hear what Aaron thinks of it. So we're going to cut to Aaron, and we'll be back to finish talking about the rest of it.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? I'm Aaron Morrison, and I'm here with Animation Triad. I'm going to have to sit down and give you my little thoughts on a little film called The Iron Giant. Now, this is one of my favorite animated films out there, and it's because of the mere fact that it really got at me. And it deals with the idea of an extraterrestrial robot crashing down to planet Earth and then befriending a little boy. And the adventures they get into, it's astounding. I mean, we're talking about so many references, but the biggest one within it was the whole idea of being a real Superman, a real superhero. Hogarth, the little boy, in his journey with the Iron Giant himself and discovering what it really means to be a hero to the people, hero to your to where it counts, you can't beat that. The animation behind it is astounding. It still holds up even till this day. I love the characters within it. I love the Iron Giant, which is voiced by astoundingly Vin Diesel. And I feel this is actually like one of Vin Diesel's better roles that was out there, considering, even though you don't see his face, and you can still, if you watch a lot of his movies, you definitely recognize that was his voice. But he put so much of heart into that particular character, it literally becomes his own. I have nothing but praise for this film. I watch it every time when it comes on, and I'm getting my own copies for it. And I just can't wait to see. I really wanted like a sequel to come to it, but for it to be a standalone movie on its own, it's just astounding. I love it.
And we're back. And that was Aaron's views. So, now we're going to talk a little bit more about just the background of the film and stuff, because we could talk about how much we love it and everything and how great it is, or you could just come to the Redford at 2 o'clock today and watch it. Or you could find it somewhere else and watch it. But if you're in the area, come watch it here because it is awesome. Seriously, check this theater out. We cannot praise it enough. So, some little technical issues about this. This was actually the first animated film to feature a CG character entirely, which was the Iron Giant. Now, to blend it in, to make it look a bit more fit with the rest of the film, they actually did draw around the edges of it to make it fit in a bit better. But you can definitely see how, when you look at the Iron Giant compared to the other characters and stuff, he does stand out differently, which I think is a very cool effect. Now, as we discussed, the film itself is loosely based on the book The Iron Man. Now, the differences between the two is, after a little misunderstanding, he is accepted right away in the book.
Which is great. I mean, it even is largely the case in the movie, too.
For the most part, except for the military. As opposed to the military and human ignorance and prejudices being the driving force of the problems.
As it usually is.
Yes. In the book, it's actually a space monster. Yes, there is the space dragon angel being, as they call it, that comes to Earth, lands on Australia, covering the entire continent, and starts demanding that everyone feed it. So
Feed me, Seymour.
feed me all night long. We have to get our musical references in when we can.
Sorry, had to reference Little Shop of Horrors there. If we
Yes.
had a tangent jar, I
She'd
would.
be paying up front right now.
I would, but
Mhm.
as I said, you're stuck with it today.
And in the book, the Iron Giant volunteers to have himself shipped to Australia to fight it. And he fights the monster a la, like a kaiju fight.
thinking of kaiju
wow,
now.
when I really think about it, the book is the precursor to Pacific Rim, basically. But yeah, so he beats up the, they have a contest to see who can stand in like burning petrol the longest and all this stuff. And basically the dragon quits at the end. It's just like, you know what, I'm actually a good guy. I saw you guys fight and stuff and it seemed exciting. And I actually sing the music of the spheres. And the Iron Giant's just like, well, sing that. And he's like, okay. And then it creates peace on Earth. And that's the end of the story.
Music can change your life. That's the motto.
Yeah, so I can definitely see why this was adapted into a kind of a rock opera, which I actually really want to look into the music now.
Yeah.
But
Me
I
too.
also think the movie stands on its own extremely well. It really does. And some people have made comparisons to it between the Iron Giant and E.T.
Yes, I can definitely see that because this essentially out-of-towner, otherworlder, comes, makes friends with the youngster before eventually having to leave because despite the welcome, big or small, the government and the military ruins everything and they're not safe here.
But in that regards, the director, Brad Bird, had this to say, I didn't see E.T. kicking as much butt. And I'm like, you know what, good point. And I wouldn't really compare it too much to it. I mean, I can see the similarities, but at the same time, I think this stands out on its own very well. I love this film, if you
does.
couldn't tell. It's one of my favorites.
It's not at all a copy of E.T. There are similarities, and I will say that while there was some butt kicking, as it were,
Yeah.
it doesn't actually read as a particularly violent film,
No.
which I like.
Except for when he's threatened at that one point in the film, which we're going to
That's
cut.
why I said
Particularly less. You know
There's
what?
some violence.
I want to show you a clip from that. All right, we're going to just throw it up for a second. I want you to take a clip, see a clip of when the Iron Giant lets loose, basically. So that was a pretty cool scene. One thing I want you to take note of was those little tendricle laser beams that he had coming out. That is right out of the War of the Worlds. That
Yes.
really is. And this film is a tribute to that era of science fiction movies and stuff. I mean, Hogarth is seen watching like a sci-fi B movie. You see a poster for Forbidden Planet in his bedroom during the
Right.
montage of him getting
Right.
ready. Another thing you see in his bedroom, which I want to point out, is he has memorabilia for the Detroit Lions. If you pay close
Home
attention,
team.
darn straight.
Woo!
Yep.
But you know, that's interesting that you bring up War of the Worlds because I would say that might actually explain some of the military's apprehension. Like, if they were sticking cleanly to the timeline rather than just some vague semblance of that timeline.
Well, I would
It's possible that Hogarth and related citizens could have heard that if that existed in their fictional world.
Well, it's set as it is. It is set
Right.
to be it's set in our world. So it would be, as I said, 1957. So that would be around the time of the Red Scare and all that. I'd say
So
probably.
if they did get to hear the War of the Worlds radio,
Yeah.
then that might explain some of the fear that they were having toward them.
I would say more to do with Sputnik and the Russian space race, because initially they're not sure if it's from space or if it's from another country or something. So I think that has a bit more to do. I mean, you know what?
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, yes. And you know what? I think the antagonist sums it up the best in it. So we're going to show a clip from the antagonist explaining his hatred of this machine.
Ever hear of Sputnik?
Yeah, it's the first satellite in space.
Foreign satellite, Hogarth, and all that implies. Even now, it orbits overhead. Boop, boop, watching us. We can't see it, but it's there. Much like that giant thing in the woods.
We don't know what it is or what it can do. I don't feel safe, Hogarth. Do you?
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? What am I talking about? I'm talking about your gold-on security, Hogarth! While you're snoozing in your wooded jammies back in Washington, we're wide awake and worried. Why? Because everyone wants what we have, Hogarth. Everyone. You think this middleman is fun, but who built it? The Russians, the Chinese, Martians, Canadians? I don't care. All I know is we didn't build it, and that's reason enough to assume the worst and blow it to kingdom come. Now, you are going to tell me about this thing. You are going to lead me to it, and we are going to destroy it before it destroys us.
There you go. That, I think, sums it up pretty well. It really does. And it's just fear. Fear of we don't know where it comes from, we don't know what it is, and we're going to destroy it before it destroys us.
Yeah, basically, don't even give it a chance.
No, not at all.
But despite this man and all his supposed infinite wisdom, that kid outsmarts him on several occasions.
Yes, he does.
And I love it. And I love my favorite scene is probably when they're in the diner and the kid just like slowly sprinkles X-Lax,
Oh, yeah.
Chocolax to be specific, right into his milkshake. And he's just like, it's chocolate. It makes it so much better. And the guy is so trusting. He's like, oh yeah, this is
Well, he
great.
thinks he's a stupid
Thank
kid.
you.
You can't outsmart him.
And they like suddenly in the middle of his lecture, in the middle of his tirade, he's got to go, girl. He's got to go. And that's when Hogarth makes his break, and that's my favorite part. And the fact that it follows him around the rest of the day.
As that continues, yeah, that was actually really funny. There's a lot of really good moments in this, and as I said, we could spend all day talking about our favorite moments. What I do want to talk about, which I think is interesting, are the home releases. This is the copy I have, which I will show a little closer. Now this is a very early DVD of it. The special features are kind of laughable because it literally is scene selection, subtitles, character bios, which is literally really, it feels like they've just pulled it from a Wikipedia article.
They have a making of.
The making
That's
of
fun.
documentary wasn't all that. That was when I said it was Vin Diesel talking to the camera,
Oh.
and it was pretty bad, I gotta admit. But it was interesting to get some input from it. But the later releases actually have deleted scenes. And if you get a very special edition of it, which I think is the one you can most commonly find at Target now, actually has scenes that they went back and finished and put in. So you see a scene of the Iron Giant having a dream, or basically a memory of his home world, and you see what the other giants were doing and why he left.
See, I feel like that should have actually been in the movie, though.
Well, as I said, a lot of it wasn't finished for time and stuff. And, well, let's talk about the budget. So, this film had a budget of about 70 to 80 million, all right? Unfortunately, it had to compete with The Sixth Sense when it came out.
Oh.
And it only made back 31.3 million. So it was not considered a success on its release. But it has since gone on to be considered an animation classic. And I can see why. It was actually nominated, for top 10 animated films of all time, actually. It was nominated for the running for that. And I can see why. It is a very good film, and if you can find the DVD, one of the special edition DVDs of it, I would encourage you to go out and get it. You get a lot more for it, you really do. You get a lot more commentary from the director, you get scenes that were originally not in it, and they actually, as I said, they went back and animated them properly and actually put them into the film itself.
Which apparently is important to the storyline.
Well, I mean, do you really need to know where he comes from?
Yes, I do. I need to know where he came from and why he thinks the way he does. We spent all this time being introduced to him and learning to love him, so naturally I want to know more.
Well, there is one question which I think should be addressed. He consumes metal, right?
Does he poop it out?
That's what we're wondering. I'm sorry, it's juvenile, but I mean,
No,
if you do
I
eat something,
wondered
I'm
that.
just wondering.
Especially since his tummy was growling.
Yeah, it did growl, didn't it?
I'm guessing lava. I'm guessing that's how you get lava.
And on that cheery note, I think it's about time we wrap this up.
I'm just
so,
saying, it's orange down here.
just no. Okay, you know what? We're going to wrap it up. So we hope you enjoy this. If you get a chance, check out the Redford Theatre today. Go see this film. It's amazing. It's well worth any time and money to come see this film.
Not only that, but the theater itself is quite a sight, so you're going to want to see it for that, too.
Indeed. So have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the review, and please go see this film. It is amazing. As usual, I'm Stu,
I'm Lish.
and this has been Animation Triad. Thanks for watching, initiates.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Awkward finger guns.
Awkward finger guns.
Oh. Yeah.
Put the red eyes away.